This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary. This is X Job Downloaded, and today it's our intention to interview Neil Baldock. Good morning, Neil.
Morning, Paul. Lovely to see you, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us here on this snowy December day. I mean, you're in an ideal location here to get to the pubs and the shops, to be fair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, funny enough, we don't spend enough time in the pub these days, but yeah.
No, things have changed. Well, the world's changed around socialising, and of course money's tight. We're going to talk about business today, but we're very cognizant as business people that people want the best deal that they can possibly get.
Yeah, definitely. I think now more than ever, people are looking for value, aren't they, out of everything, and definitely sort of like reviewing their options in terms of their spending.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll come on to that later on in the interview. Mate, you were a police officer. We worked together, and a lot of people don't actually realise you were in the old bill. No,
that's right. Well, it's been a while now, I think, isn't it? Because I think I left in 2014, joined in 2008. And at the time, I think you were detective inspector at Brentwood, weren't you?
I was, and I wasn't always grumpy.
No, I got on very well with you, Paul. Yeah, I wasn't afraid to come into the CID office.
No, that's good. What was your motivation to join the police?
Well, at the time, I was working security, so I was running a door company, like a door security firm. I was like an area manager for that. So I was working 5 nights a week on the door, and also 5 days a week, like in the office, organising the running of that. And at the time, I just thought I need a proper career. Like I think I was 25-ish, and I just saw the police as like a move on from security and to give me a proper career really with a sort of a long-term future. So I applied for the police and thankfully got in.
Yeah, and I know you did 6 years or so, but you did well in it. You were well respected within the police service. Were you only at Brentwood, or where else did you go to?
Yes, I did the sort of PDU, I think they called it at the time, didn't they, at Loughton. Then got posted to Brentwood. And yeah, I'm really fond of the Brentwood days, actually, because that's obviously where I started and met some of my best mates and stuff like that. And then there was a reform, I think they called it, and I got posted out to Basildon. Started at Pitsea as a neighbourhood officer, and then ended my career as I can't remember what they called it at the time, but it was like an investigation unit, basically, at Basildon.
Did you enjoy your time in the police service?
Yeah, I did. I did enjoy it mostly. I had a bit of a bad start to it because I got suspended in my probation.
Did you?
Yeah. So we can talk about that. That was the Sugar Hut incident, if you remember it. I don't know, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, go for it now, mate. Now is the time.
Yeah. So I think, it was within the first 6 months of my career. The Sugar Hut was on fire, basically, which was like the main thing in The Only Way is Essex. Yeah. So there was a lot of press attention around it. The singer Pixie Lott was having her birthday party there. So again, there was BBC cameras outside, everything like this. And then what happened was, I think O'Neill's was the pub, and they asked us to help them removing a big party that was causing problems and that kind of thing. So yeah, we went in, helped them and the door staff remove this lovely gentleman kicked off as they do. And I'm not a small chap.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And basically there was 3 of us. We just couldn't control this fella. So there's obviously something going on there in terms of drug use and whatever else. But essentially, cut a long story short, he got sprayed in the face at very close range by a colleague of mine with CS spray. Yeah. It looked worse than it was at the time because there was a lot of there was blood going everywhere from his nose. He was being pinned down on the front of the bonnet of the police car, and of course, there's a BBC cameraman thinking he's writing his own paycheck here, absolutely loving life. So he's videoed the whole thing. Of course, that goes on the media, everything else. 3 of us get suspended. Put on restricted duties first of all, and then suspended after that. We went through a whole IPCC investigation. I think my interview was the shortest out of the 3 of us, and that was 5 hours long.
Wow.
Really felt like we were sort of
under the cosh
and hauled through the coals, only to be found no further action required, because when you looked at the CCTV from the other angle, you could see this bloke lifting me clean off the ground, throwing me around on his back.
He must have been very strong, that's all I'll say.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So that sort of tainted the start of my career a little bit, to be honest.
So let's go back to that, because, I mean, I know the incident, and I forgot that you were actually involved in it. I think I was a staff officer for Tim Stokes at the time, but it's quite daunting, isn't it? When you're forget the incident, but when you are being investigated by professional standards or the IPCC, it's very daunting even when you've done 30 years, but when you're in your first 6 months of your service, that is quite overwhelming.
Yeah, and to be honest, I just have a little shiver come over myself talking about it, because you can laugh about it now, but at the time it was really quite scary. And I remember, because it went all out in the news and the press, I even had a phone call from my mum saying "Oh, Neil, I've just seen this. They said 3 officers have been suspended. Is it you?" And I thought, I didn't even get the chance to tell my own mum what was happening before it's out on the news. So yeah, it was scary, and I must admit, I felt like we weren't looked after by the organisation. I did feel looked after by like yourself and Tim Stokes and like the local command. And it was made very clear to us that we sort of bit behind you, but on an organisational level, I did feel like we were thrown to the wolves a bit. Yeah,
you'd already been convicted before you'd even got to the stage of being interviewed. That was
Absolutely.
You'd had trial by media, and I have to say that you had some great supporters there from your local command. But the feelings of being interviewed, and I mean, I started this interview with this interview's being tape recorded.
Yeah.
But I've been interviewed. Everybody gets complaints, but when they give you that caution, it's unnerving, because actually it's the caution that you give to suspects.
Yeah, that's right.
And to be cautioned and told that you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you fail to mention when questioned something later relying in court, that unnerves you, because you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, ultimately, you're only doing your job, and to be given the caution that you're giving out on a day-to-day basis, it does give you a weird feeling.
Yeah, and I think going back to your bit about the media with the BBC, accepting that person's doing their job, but you just wish that the police or the IPCC, IOPC, you wish that they would release some of this other footage. You wish they'd have released the O'Neill's footage at the same time, just to mitigate and negate and show exactly why that person was sprayed. Because otherwise, for 10 months or however long it takes to be investigated, the public see one side of it, and they just see the side that the local media, the BBC, have done.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Because the other side of it doesn't sell a story, and so the media aren't interested in telling that to the public. But that's what does the reputational damage to the police. Yeah. And that's probably what discourages people from staying in the job or even joining the job these days, which I think is sad, because it was a good job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did 30 years, and I would absolutely, I'd do it again if I was doing it under the same circumstances that I did it previously.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like what's happened, but that's progress. In the same way my dad joined in the late 60s. There were people that had been in, they fought in the Second World War.
Yeah.
And they were just retiring, and he was just joining, and they would have said to him that, the job had it. So how long were you suspended for?
So I think in total it was around 5 months, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think we went on restricted duties for a couple of months, and then the suspension came, and 5-ish months. So,
and from a mental health perspective, I think people don't understand that you are a police officer. From your own mental perspective, that hurts. It really does. Starts to get you down, doesn't it? When you know that the next meeting that you're going to have with a police officer, one will be your Federation friend, or it'll be a member of PSD or the IOPC.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting you sort of mentioned the mental health side, because nowadays that's quite prevalent and we're all talking about it and we're all supporting each other. But even back then...
which isn't that long ago.
Isn't that long ago. We're not even 10 years ago, is it? But it wasn't really talked about so much. And I think that wasn't really a discussion that was sort of had with us. It was just, I remember one of my biggest memories from that was... my custody skipper at the time, Paul Jarvis, great guy, great
fella,
like so much support for our shift. He's like the dad of the shift. Like, you just could not fault the bloke.
Yeah.
And he even had to apologise to me for this because he was only doing his job. But I remember when I got suspended, I had some stuff in my locker, so I had to come down the police station, get escorted in. And then as I left, and you remember Brentwood, I had to walk out like the custody door.
Yeah.
And I sort of, as I was leaving the door, I turned around and Jarvo was still there, sort of stood there looking at me. And I said, "Oh, are you all right, Sarge?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm really sorry, Neil, but like, I have to make sure you like leave the premises." And I thought to myself, yeah, no, fair enough. But like, that hurt, do you know what I mean? Because that was a place that I was going into daily, doing my job.
Yeah.
And of course, I wasn't allowed in anymore.
No. And I've been the escorting officer when I worked for Tim. And a few of the others, Simon Williams and, a few of the other, if someone got suspended, and let me tell you that suspending somebody isn't done lightly, I was the one that escorted people off the premises, get their staff, personal effects, whatever, and leave. That was hard for me as well, because some of these people were my friends as well.
Yeah.
But it's business. I mean, as the Godfather would say, Don Corleone, it's just business, because it's not personal. Although I have to say there are some people in our former employee, who would see it as personal and would do their absolute ultimate to cause you or I significant problems to make themselves look better, which is a real shame. But that's life.
Yeah, that's life. And I think that's part of one of the things I didn't get on with in the police, with the politics and... the way I could see some people wanting to further their career by doing others a disservice and down. And that's just something I can't handle. It's not, I wouldn't stand for it in my own company. It's just not me.
No.
I think people get promoted on their merits and,
absolutely,
and their work ethic and everything else. And but I guess that's probably a problem in any big organisation.
Yeah, it is. And I had the unenviable task of having to arrest a colleague.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And that was something that they'd done, not something that I'd done. And I'd actually done everything I can or could to prevent that arrest from taking place. And even to this day, that individual just completely blanks me, because it wasn't my fault. I didn't get involved in the domestic with his other half.
Yeah. You were just doing your job.
I'm just doing my job. I was a temporary chief inspector at the time. And these things aren't done lightly. And he was a friend.
Yeah.
But you have to, your job's your job, and that's how, without fear or favour, that's how you do it. So you've done Brentwood. You're back at work now.
Yeah.
How long before you go to Basildon?
Probably a couple of years before I then got sent to Basildon. Yeah. So I had a good time at Brentwood. I had a really good time. And Brentwood it's good to discuss Brentwood and Basildon because they're two sort of like completely opposing places. Yeah. I always say to people, in Brentwood, as a police officer, I could knock on the door, say hello, and get a complaint for it. In Basildon, I knocked on the door, they say you're not coming in, and you walk in and it's all fine. It's like, it's a total different of atmosphere. But I did have good times in Brentwood. I was on C shift, response shift at Brentwood. We crossed over with a couple of good shifts. And the thing is, with Brentwood, you've got like the town itself, but then all the outlying villages. And I was a neighbourhood officer. After I did response, I then went on to the neighbourhood team. And I was neighbourhood officer for Pilgrims Hatch, Kelvedon Hatch, Doddinghurst. Nice. So there's a lot of different like challenges out there. It's kind of an interesting place to work. So you've got sort of a little bit of rural side of it as well as... Yeah. I mean, my favourite stuff, because I used to be a doorman before I was a police officer, my favourite stuff is policing the town centre on a Friday and Saturday night. But yeah, it was a good
Christmas
variety.
Eve? Didn't I turn up at Christmas Eve where you were working once?
Yeah, I think you did. I think there was a curry going on or something like that.
Yeah, no, I remember that. But no, you're right. I mean, Brentwood, I loved working at Brentwood, and the public are very demanding. Let's say that. I mean, they are very, very demanding, and there's some great people there. Of course, the PCC is a Brentwood politician, so so it is. They're very demanding, and they know what they want, and they've got great expectations. It's interesting though that the PCC and the former chief constable, they were instrumental in the removal of the police building there, which has been now demolished and turned into residential premises.
Turned into flats, and the police are holed up with the council, aren't they? I think.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So, it's an interesting concept, but anyway, we won't go down that one. So 2 years before you, any other highlights at Brentwood Wash? Are there any nice bits other than getting suspended?
Any nice bits? Yeah, I think I just had a good time. It's like I had a really good shift I was working with. Good, I'd say Paul Jarvis was our custody skipper. He was good, and the ones either side of us, they were really good as well. It was just it was a good team there, and it's a small enough nick to sort of know everyone. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I loved about it. Everyone knew everyone. You knew who was good, you knew who was bad, and it was just a good place to work.
And I think anyone who's listening to this, Brentwood, if you looked at a map, as you come out of the police station and turn to your left, you could see the buildings from the City of London.
Yeah. Well, on a night shift, do you remember, you turn left out of the nick, on a night shift, you're going down the hill, you could literally see Canary Wharf, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how close it is. So, and once you get to the roundabout, you're actually in the Met ground. So you'd pick up a lot of customers, if you like, that would come across from the Met thinking they were going to get an easy touch, commit their burglaries, deal their drugs. Dare I say it, have fights in the high street because he only weighs Essex. You know, it was a great place to work. So what year did you go to Baz?
I can't remember exactly, but it must have been... In fact, I can remember exactly, and I'll tell you why, because 2012 I went, because that was when my son was born.
Right.
And I've just remembered he was born just after I started at Pitsy Nick. Yeah. So it must have been literally around May 2012 I then went to Basildon, or to Pitsy, I should say. And because they had a nick in Pitsy and then one in Baz Town Centre. And again, I was a bit put out because I didn't get it at the time. I was like, you wouldn't do this in business. You've got teams that are operating really well together. You've got people trained in certain things, and then which obviously the company, as the police, have invested in to train them to do.
Yeah.
And then you go, I'm just going to do this complete reform because whoever's now the chief constable decided that's, or I don't know if it was him or whoever's decided this has got to be done. So let's disband all these teams that know how to work together and have been trained and put them in other jobs. It just doesn't make sense to me, because you never do that in a day-to-day company. Pay for everyone to do a certain job and then go, actually, I'm going to send you off and do something else.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it was at a time of austerity. I mean, we had pay freezes. We're talking about we had pay freezes for a number of years in the police. And do you know what? No one cared about my pension until there was a recession.
Yeah.
And now it's, well, how much did you get as a pension? And people can become quite, not vile, but, they're quite aggressive because they think, what they fail to see is that actually I paid for a high percentage of my pension. I paid my national insurance, I paid my taxes, and I didn't work in cash. So when I get somebody who's giving me a hard time because they're driving around in their nice 4x4, what have you. I've paid all my dues, thanks very much, and that's what's lost. But that's what reform was all about. Whether it was right or wrong, I've got a view on that as well, mate, and it's not dissimilar to yours. I think that going from 10 divisions to 3 LPAs was a retrograde step, and what we've actually done is we've stripped out of service and not replaced it properly.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you can tell that by the lack of police officers everywhere, yeah. But it's just for me, I guess I've got a business mind, and I probably had it even when I was in the police without sort of knowing it. Just makes no sense to me. It's like that was it for me. And things that don't make sense to me don't sort of sit well.
Yeah. No, I'm quite simple when it comes to things like this. Like, if it don't work, then I'm going to make a change. Yeah. So you made your change. What was the inspiration to? Well, what do you do now, Neil? What's your main stock and trade?
Yeah, so I run an estate and a letting agency, basically called Charles David Casson in Chelmsford. We cover the whole of Essex, really, with sales, lettings. We specialise in a type of property management called HMO management, so it's like house shares, basically. Houses of multiple occupation, but not like the ones we used to go and see in the police. We're talking like high-quality professional house shares. So, yeah, that's my kind of day-to-day job. And then I've got some spin-offs of that as we're trying to grow the business. We've got like multiple different income streams, I suppose.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Diversity in funding and income streams. That's the key to being successful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we've seen that even just in our own business. Like if you only had an estate agency selling houses now. Well, firstly, the pandemic, and also now is not the best time for you because, a lot of people are struggling to borrow money to buy houses, a lot of political uncertainty, and that uncertainty in the housing market is what causes price problems because people won't move when there's uncertainty. So for our business, we actually want house prices either going up or down. Obviously, we don't really want house prices to go down, but from a business point of view, it doesn't matter because that's when there's movement in the market. We've got to have, like, the letting side of the business is something we've really focused on because we saw that as basically what creates value in our business that we could actually sell at some point. But also it's cash flow, it's regular management income on a monthly basis. And then we just spot opportunities. So like, we are going to franchise this business as well because that's a way to grow that. Like we've got me and my brother own the company, so it's not just me and my brother own it, and we've got a vision to basically improve the standards within the estate agency industry. And one of the ways we can do that is by growing our brand, but also training other people to do things the way we like them to be done, because we know it's good for the end user, the public. So that's something we're doing, franchising. We're also got a network of agents now who specialise in HMO management because, again, that's a sector that's got a historically bad reputation of like bed sits and dives, basically. So we're taking on like quality agents and helping them to grow their business because, again, that fits in with our vision of improving the industry. And
how many people are you collaborating with at the moment? Because you do a membership type thing, don't you, with them?
With them, so with it's called the HMO network, and we've got 20 agents across the country now, right from down in Cornwall along the south coast. Got a few in Kent, round Essex, not Manchester yet, but quite a few around Liverpool, even into Wales. So we've got them all over the country now.
So you're looking to expand that you want to work with other agencies basically and get them on board? Definitely,
yeah. So we're interested in speaking to any other estate and letting agencies across the country because there's some way we can help them, whether that's coming into our brand as a franchise, whether that's joining the HMO network if they're into that side of property management, whether that's helping them on a consultancy basis. But the other thing we're really doing, and we've done 4, we're about to do a 5th, and then we want to do even more of this, is actually acquisition, so acquiring other letting agencies.
That's interesting.
To build the business that way,
And exciting.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as well. Like, it's I love my day-to-day job selling and letting houses, but I like looking at businesses and seeing how we can solve problems or how we could add that into our business and create more profit out of it and employ more people and create more opportunities. That's the bit I love, really.
Do you think being in the police service has helped you? I mean, you obviously had the entrepreneurial skills before you joined the police because you'd already run a business, but do you think that the police has assisted in your outlook?
100%, yeah, especially in property management. So I'd say that like the police has definitely helped because it gave me a network of people that I would never have had. I was known to a lot of people because I worked all over the county. You meet people, the police recommend to each other. So we've done a lot of business with police officers or police staff. So that's helped. But my outlook is definitely different to people that come and work for me. And they love it because I can really help them with things the general public might panic about. I do not.
No.
and police officers in general do not, because we're running a property management company here. This is a hassle business, I say. So we've got people's boilers breaking down, fridges breaking down, all this kind of stuff, and they're very demanding about that. But when I walk into the room and everyone's sort of going, "Oh God, it's busy today. They've got this, that," I said, my go-to saying is, "Has anyone died?"
Exactly.
And they say, "What do you mean, Neil?" And I said, "Well, no, has anyone died, or has anyone just been stabbed in front of you, or something terrible like that?" And they say, "No." I said, "Well, then we don't need to panic, do we? We can deal with this like slowly."
Exactly.
And I think the police officers actually, this is one thing that I speak to a lot of my friends about as well. They're looking to get out of the police, and they've joined at 18. They don't know where else to go with it. Their skills are so transferable into many different angles, but especially into the property world, because you're dealing with a lot of emotional people a lot of the time, because it's their home. And police officers just have all those, resilience, problem solving, compassion,
customer focus.
Yeah, and actually, the other thing is they're action takers. So you say to a police officer, "Do this," and they go and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are literally point and shoot, with want of a better word, but you can point them in the right direction. They go and do it.
That's right, and that's it's not the only reason. But that's one of the reasons I wanted to franchise this business, because I'd love a route to give officers out of the job, or not even out of the job, after the job, whatever the case may be. If there's people interested, because when you're looking to franchise a business, you're creating a structure and a set of processes that work if they're followed. Yeah. And of course, basically, people from the police or the armed forces, we're great at following instructions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And working within a framework.
Yeah, and putting that jigsaw puzzle together and putting the final piece in. And there are some really clever people that have joined the police, and I think that we're getting to a stage where it's not the career I joined. It's a stepping stone to success. It really is, because you're busy, you're successful in your field, and you're going to grow. But you've utilised your skills within the police service that you've got from the police service to good effect. And I think that there are a number of people like you that could do that. But what they don't realise is there is an exit strategy. There is the ability to do what you're doing. Yeah, definitely.
I think the trouble is, when you're in the police, it's all about the police, isn't it? There is you're in a bubble, basically. There's everywhere you look, it's you've got different. It's like with the police, you've got different routes of your career you can go down, but none of them. Obviously, promotion's a bit different, but none of them are going to make you any more money or give you a different outlook. You're just going into different routes. Whereas when you step outside of the police, there's just opportunities everywhere, and then. Like I say, we've created I call it the Disney effect. So you got Disney, and I didn't make that up, by the way. I've stolen that. But we've basically created in the middle is our sales and letting agency, and then we're just pinging off little bits and pieces like franchising, the HMO network, coaching estate agents, that kind of stuff. Because there are but it all leads back into the same thing.
Into the centre, yeah.
And I think there's so much you can do once you step outside of the police or look outside of the police.
But it's identifying. It's like identifying a suspect.
Yes, yeah.
If you've got the skill set to identify a suspect and you've followed that path and you've done your Sherlock Holmes bit, it's exactly the same, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to find your way. And if you can do that and find your way to getting somebody who's committed a burglary, actually you can find your way to earning a few quid outside of the police service.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard for people to repurpose those skills, isn't it, or revision what they're doing. But I had a chat with Jack Wardley, who's my best mate, and he's often looking he's got 2 kids now. He sometimes thinks, what would I do?
What does life look like?
What does it? And not necessarily at the minute, because he's getting promoted and he's doing very well for himself, but people and it's not just Jack, but lots of people talk to me about it, and I sort of say to them, but actually look at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Don't think of it as I've gone and dealt with that firearms incident, or I've gone and actually think what you've done there. I've dealt with a high pressure environment. I've led a team. I've done, and if you actually start looking into actually what you've done, not just the actual, you know, what skills you were using, not just the actual incident as such.
Yeah.
Then you start thinking, oh bloody hell, actually, yeah, I'm really quite good here.
I'm good at this.
I'm good at this, and I can do anything I want. You know.
And it will be to the detriment of the police service, because the really good ones will just go, I'm going to go and do something else.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, Sir Clive Woodward calls it the teacup moment, thinking clearly under pressure. Okay, and I think that 98% of the people that I worked with over 30 years could do that. Yeah, there's always one or two who couldn't think clearly under pressure, but yeah. So your branding is paramount, isn't it? Because you actually, like us, X-Job, wherever you look, you'll see the X-Job logos, et cetera, et cetera. And we're prolific, and I know that you are prolific as a business. How important is it to maintain that on-course branding, the Disney branding, making sure that if it's Pocahontas, it'll have Disney underneath it? Well, how important is that to you as a business?
That's really important, I think, for us as a business now, because we've just done, funny enough, this last year a whole brand refresh, built a new website, and really invested a lot of money into branding, which some people would say, well, why have you done that? But actually, when you go through the whole process of doing that and working out what your kind of values are and the mission and everything else, and putting a proper brand together, there's actually a lot. It's not just a logo, basically, is it? A brand?
No, absolutely.
So we've done that whole process this year because we wanted to build it ready to then grow into franchising. And there is a whole movement in the estate agency industry at the minute where you can become a self-employed estate agent, like they do in America and Australia and this kind of thing. And so what they do is they work through what they call a brokerage. And there's a couple called Keller Williams in the UK and EXP, and they're growing really well, to be fair. Yeah. My issue with those, they're good for some people. There's a place for everything ultimately. But for me, like if I'm in Chelmsford, you'll see Charles David Casson everywhere. Yeah. And people still know my personal brand. They don't actually. A lot of the time, they recommend Matt or Neil Baldock.
Yeah, they do. I've seen it on social media.
Yeah. So they'll recommend us from that company. But then if I have, like, if Paul Maleary starts in Whittam, let's say, which is only up the road, but you're not branded as Charles David Casson, and you've just got like a little brokerage underneath you, there's no brand attrition to know that, oh, this brand's growing, or they did in Chelmsford, they did in Whittam, we'll do business together. So that's the thing for me. I think the UK is a brand-centric country. We recognise brands, we like brands, and so that's the reason we've made that decision to go down that route. That even if people come in, because you can join us as like a self-employed agent, there's room for that, but it is under our brand because we want to help you grow a business rather than just become self-employed.
And equally, if you've got somebody in Whittam and they see Paul Maleary working with Charles David Casson, and there's nobody in Brentwood, then all of a sudden Joe Bloggs will be looking at but you've got to maintain that connection between the person that's running the business and your own company. Otherwise, your branding stops in the centre of Chelmsford. Yeah,
that's right. And I think that's important because the brand needs to grow to then feed back to the agents. So we've got like brand guidelines and a lot of control sort of measures around that, and that's not for everyone, by the way. Like there'd be some people that just couldn't work like that. They'd be like, well, Neil, you're telling me what to do all the time. I've bought this franchise or I've paid into this model, and I don't want to be told what to do because it's my business. That's fine. Just run your own business then, but then you don't get all the benefit of everything we've built and what we can give you, and the support we can help you to grow. But I think it's different types of people. Some people, like, I wouldn't see it like that. I would see it as, okay, this is a way to accelerate my growth, learn from past mistakes, that I don't have to make those mistakes myself. And I've just got a model that can help me grow a business. Yeah. But, it's different types of people, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. And as a recruitment company, we collaborate with a number of different areas. And you're always conscious of the fact that you want to do the collaboration, you want your name on the headed paper, but sometimes you've got to be earning that pound note. So it's a difficult dilemma. So what happens next? What's going to happen next in yours and your brother's world with regards to business? Yeah, so I think sometimes the other thing to say is, like, sometimes we have to, like, and we've done a bit of an exercise in this year, is focus a bit as well, because there are so many opportunities. You can end up getting into too many things. So basically, this next year we're growing our core business, like Charles David Caston Sales and Lettings Agency, and we'll be doing that through some acquisitions as well. So we're already in the throes of buying an agency in Wickford, and we'll be kind of continuing down that route. The franchising side of it, and helping other people start a business within estate agency is like a key growth area for us, and the HMO network, which is, as I say, like a membership model for specialist HMO managers. We're growing that as well.
What's the contingency? God forbid it ever happen, but from a business perspective, contingency around another COVID outbreak, because that must have really hit you guys hard.
Yeah, funny enough, we can't really complain about the COVID outbreak because our business took off a bit. We actually entered it with 6 of us, including me and my brother, and came out of it with 17 of us.
Wow.
But then we've had to scaled that back a bit. So we've reduced the head count because actually it's very easy when you're growing fast and there's lots of money about to spend money that you don't need to spend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just employ people, and then you think, oh, okay, and we can do the same with less people, basically. So the hard times make you more efficient, I think, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're all going through it because companies, whoever you're working for, they're looking at their efficiencies as well. So if you can be competitive and work within their efficiencies, then you're on a winner.
Yeah, but I suppose so. Our contingency really is just to the COVID thing. The reason we were so good through it was the sales market stopped for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, if you were just an estate agent, like just selling houses, that would have been a really hard time. So that's why we have a lettings business. Because it's hard to work, and there's a legislation around it and processes and all the rest of it. So some people don't see it as so sexy as selling that £1 million house, but every month it pays us, and it's got a value to it as well, which can be sold.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you want to, or if necessary.
Yeah, and it's got a run rate, hasn't it? Because it's perpetual business. If you've got somebody who's on a 12-month contract, you've got that money coming in for 12 months, and you know full well that someone else is going to rent after that. Why would I come to you as a business if I was looking for somebody to sell or looking for a property to rent? Why would I come to your company?
Yeah, I think because we're experts at the end of the day. We've got a lot of, especially in Chelmsford, we've got a lot of local knowledge, and lettings, we don't need so much local knowledge, but what we do need is the expertise in terms of the legislation and everything like that. So one thing is, we are experts. Like, everybody that works here is well trained. Me and my brother have been doing this a long time, and we're experts in our field, and we're not arrogant about that. But we believe in ourselves, basically. We've got a lot of processes, so we don't just take a property, stick it on Rightmove, stick our thumb in the air and see what happens. We've got a proven process, a marketing process, which is like a 6-step thing to get the maximum price for it. We don't throw all of our eggs in one basket and throw everything at it at once, because if it doesn't sell, then where have we got to go? We've got a staggered approach, which is proven, basically. So really, it's just and we're good at negotiating and getting the best result for our clients, and our service is good. And I think as long as you provide a good service, then people will come back.
And you're massively accessible. You in this area, everybody knows you. Your social media profile is good. Your overall footprint is fantastic, and we'll be putting all your links for your businesses on the page when we release this episode. Neil, before I conclude this interview, is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct?
No, I think only for me, it's just that I think people should believe in themselves, and that's maybe not something I knew when I was in the police, and it's something that's come with a few years of business, but and some people think it's a bit, positive mindset and all that's a bit weird, but just believe in yourself and actually back yourself and look at the skills you've got, and don't be afraid to step outside the box.
Neil, so you made it quite clear that you're quite happy to assist and mentor people and get them into this business world, this business model, support them, get them to buy into your business model, because it's a fantastic concept. how would they get hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably easiest is my email address, which is Neil, Neil, at charlesdavidcasson, casson.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm everywhere on social media.
Yeah,
Neil Baldock, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Or our office number is 01245 835859.
Brilliant. And as I say, we're going to put all your links onto this page, and I wish you every success for 2023.
Thank you very much, mate.